da 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 da. It's not unusual to be loved by anyone. It's not unusual to have fun with anyone. But when I see you hanging about with anyone, it's not unusual. See me cry. I wanna die.
Are you gonna do the dance?
It's not unusual. Oh gosh, don't get me started.
The Carlton.
Oh my goodness. Baby is Carlton.
Oh boy.
Welcome to the Sabby and Jaybe show. I am your host, James Fauntleroy, one of your hosts. Good to see you. What's good, Sabs?
What's going on, Jaybe? Great show earlier. Great
Oh,
show.
thanks. Yeah, I was live with Nico House earlier. So that was a long stream that we did. Man, we talked. We talked, you know. So yeah, it was great. But just to let you guys know, the Sabby and Jaybe show is every single Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you guys have not, you guys can also make sure to listen out for us. I know, Sabby, you're going live at 8 p.m. this evening. So be sure to watch her later this evening as well. And then you guys can find me on Sundays on the Jaybe show here on RBN. And then I have my channel on Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you guys have not, please go ahead and share the video. We're going to be getting into some deep subjects today. So please make sure to also subscribe if you have not already. The road to 50,000 is a long one, but we shall get there. All right. Also, if you guys have not, you guys can go to Jaybe. I'm thinking about my own channel. You guys can go to revolutionaryblackout.substack.com. Jaybe. And so you guys can get email notifications whenever we go live or upload clips. And if you guys have any email inquiries or if you guys would like to submit stories, you guys can go to revolutionaryblackout@outlook.com for that. So thank you so very much. Just going to say a hello to a few people in the chat. We got a lot of people that are going to want to tune into this because it is going to be interesting. Also, please make sure to take the poll. Yes, Sabs, I put up a poll. So we're going to actually put up the poll for you guys for your opinions about Project 2025. So we're going to talk about that too. So let's go to, that was me. Never mind. We got, IHQ Princessa Joe.
Okay.
Says Project 2025 is a psyops waged by the Democratic Party on the voters who are thoroughly disillusioned with the Democrats, causing them to funding neo-Nazis and genociders so they can dupe people to vote for them. Thank you so very much for that. We have Apnarg says, hasn't Project 2025 been happening for decades with Patriot Act, NSA spying on us, fake wars, and killing whistleblowers? We're going to talk about it. Okay. Skippy McGee says Project 2025 has nothing to do with Trump. Let's talk about it. Judges chapter 6, verse 1, the Black Sabbath War Pigs. That's an interesting name. Says Wu-Tang Clan, y'all been warned.
Wu-Tang. Wu-Tang.
Grigor says, awesome, RBN all day. Thank you so very much. We have Nick Cruz coming in the chat, coming saying Sabby and Jaybe are too powerful. Yes. Lorez says, sup Jaybe and Sabrina. Why are you using her government name? It's Sabby. Don't use her government name like that.
It doesn't matter. Most people do call me Sabrina.
It says, in RBN fam, I voted no. It's more fear-mongering to get sheep herd us back to get sheep herd us back to lesser evil of two evils duopoly. BS watching y'all instead of embarrassing big boy press conference. Who's the big boy?
I don't know. I'll look this up really quick. I'm curious now.
I mean, from one big boy to another. All right. Anisha says, hey, Sabby, Jaybe, Nick, Nico, Rome, and Arby and fam. What a treat to see those shows happening. Watching on a cold, wintry Uruguayan afternoon. I can't talk today. Jeez Louise.
It's Biden's press conference, and they're calling it Big Boy.
Okay. All right, cool. John Free says, hi, everybody. Looking forward to this show. Good to see you, John. Gregor says, isn't like half of Project 2025 already in place? We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk. Luke says, my grandma's favorite song. Ooh, nice. All right.
Grandma likes Tom Jones, huh?
Oh, yeah. You know what? I didn't know Tom Jones was from the UK.
What?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah. Have you ever heard him speak?
Yeah, he doesn't sound like he's from the UK.
I saw him on The Voice, and he had an accent.
Wait, we're talking about the same person?
Yeah, he's Welsh.
What?
Yes, girl, he's Welsh.
He doesn't sound like it.
Yeah,
I saw him in an interview.
Huh?
I saw him in an interview from the 70s, and he didn't sound like he was from the UK.
Oh, girl, let me show you. Tom Jones, Welsh singer. I did not know that. Mm-hmm. Yup. All this money in Vegas. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Old Crow says, hello, everyone. I'm here to get over this fear-mongering of basic conservatism. I'm watching Jasmine Crockett Fearmonger. I guess that's the new company line. Gray Walker says, who's afraid of the big bad wolf? Who's afraid of the big bad wolf? The big bad wolf? The big bad wolf? Marvin Vargas says, what is 2025? Teachers, please. Fear is the power over you. Thank you very much. Bobby coming in saying love. Thank you so very much, Bobby. From the Rumble side, we have Migueling says, peace. Good to see you. John coming in saying, saw you on Nico today, Jaybe. Great to see you again with the sabbiest Sabby too. Yes, absolutely. Lorette says, the Heritage Foundation releases its projects every election year. Nothing to fear. Interesting. Nick says, imagine being scared of Project 2025 as Biden is funding genocide and Democrats building cop cities all over the country. We're going to talk about it, Nick. Tisha says, hola from Sacktown, where it's going to be 111 today. Ooh, I'm so sorry.
Oof.
Yeah. Tina Smith says, I voted not sure. I have no clue what it is. Well, we're going to talk about it. John, hang on. Says, Joe Biden has a big boy press conference. Roger Meadows says, the great replacement strategy is Project 25 to bring migrants over, dump them in Black communities and displace us in business and dilute our voting power, skipping over Black people to make us invisible. Thank you very much. And Travelers Wolf says, Tom Jones, he's Welsh. Thank you very much. And Chris Cox. And then COVID Commander says, I'm more afraid of drinking too much on this NyQuil than some Mueller Project 2025 project. And then we'll end with Hobbs saying, my prediction, Biden dropping out at his press conference. I'm not going to finish that.
I don't think so. He's not going to drop out. Not at this press conference. So I wouldn't think he would do that there.
Yeah. So let's get into this. So what are we talking about? As you guys have probably saw from the thumbnail, we're going into Project 2025, a threat. Let's get into this because it is going to be very, very important for us to realize what this is and what you need to know. Sabs, let me ask you this. When did you first hear about Project 2025?
This year.
This year?
Mm-hmm.
I
Can't remember exactly.
I heard about it last year.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was like, oh, okay. But when I first heard about it, I wanted to get into more of the nuts and bolts of it. So, because ever since Taraji decided to talk about it and bring it up, now everybody's talking about it. And it's like, wait a minute, why are we talking about this? Why is this the biggest news? And who benefits from us constantly talking about Project 2025? Well, I'm going to give us just a very short overview. I'm going to share this video really quick. This is about a minute and a half, and it's a really like a little bit of a crash course, and then we'll get into the nuts and bolts. So, what is Project 2025? Let's go.
Former President Donald Trump has been distancing himself from a controversial conservative plan called Project 2025, which has raised alarms among Democrats. In a post on social media, he said he has, quote, nothing to do with them, adding some of the plan's suggestions are, quote, ridiculous and abysmal. But what is this mysterious Project 2025? It's a 900-page transition agenda for the next Republican president who, under the plan, could feasibly take over in 2025. It's essentially a handbook filled with conservative priorities drafted by right-wing think tank the Heritage Foundation. It calls for a mass firing of federal workers and includes a, quote, overhaul of the Justice Department. It would end FBI efforts to stop misinformation and abolish diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives across the federal government. On abortion, Project 2025 would penalize care providers and scale back on protections. The plan also rolls back several of Biden's climate change policies. On X, the group says it does not speak for any one candidate or campaign.
It was designed with the understanding that no nominee would like all of it or large chunks of it, but for the pieces they were in agreement with, there'd be people ready to go and move on it.
Meanwhile, Democrats are trying to tie Project 2025 directly to Trump, calling it part of the, quote, MAGA operation.
This document is creepy. It's a takeover of the American form of government.
Hey, thank you for...
Shut up, Chris.
So funny.
Right.
He's so funny.
So that's basically the overview. So, you know, you've been having people go, oh my God, Project 2025, like the MAGA is going to take over and they're going to do all these horrible things across the country. Now, sorry, go ahead.
The best way that I can say it is that, is it real? Yes, it's real. Is it good news? No, it's not good news. At least I don't consider it to be good news. However, some of these things have already been done. If you look at Project, we'll get into it, but some of these things are already happening. And a lot of people just don't have the time to do the research because a lot of people are working and a lot of people don't do what we do with independent media. But if everyone had time to look at what Project 2025 is, you'll realize that some of these things have already been implemented, and the Democratic Party they're exaggerating about part of this. So that's right. What's important for people to know. It doesn't mean we're not here to tell you it's not real or that it's good news. It's not good news. It's bad news. It is real, but the Democratic Party is exaggerating in it and pretending like this has not happened. I can get to the Heritage Foundation later.
Well, I was about to get here really quick just to let people know that, yes, this is by the Heritage Foundation. So, you know, there's more, you know, that you actually went over on your channel as well regarding this. So this is about Project 2025. And so it talks about, it says within the Biden administration half over. So it says, and with the immediate dangers inherent to one party rule in Washington behind us for now, This was, I think this is right after the midterms. It says it's past time to lay the groundwork for a White House more friendly to the right, like they aren't already. It says for decades, the left has continued to march to America's institutions. Conservatives have been outgunned and outmatched when it comes to the art of government. It says one reason is because the Republican establishment never moved on from the 1980s. Beltway conservatives still prioritize supply-side economics and a bellicose foreign policy above all else. Belief in small government, strangely enough, has manifested itself in a belief among some conservatives that we should lead by example and not fill all political appointments. Belief in the primacy of the national security state has caused conservative administrations to defer political decisions to the generals and the intelligence community. The result has been decades of disappointment. Fortunately, this situation is changing. The conservative movement increasingly knows what time it is in America. More and more of our politicians are willing to use the government to achieve our vision because the neutrality of keeping the government out of it will lose every time to the left's vast power. First of all, I'm going to say this. What power does the actual left have? I'm not talking about the Democrats. I'm talking about the real left.
Well, we don't have a real left in this country. We have people who are leftists. We have people that are socialists. We have people that are, progressives, but we don't have a real left in this country. And you can see that if you were to compare us to other countries that do have a real left and a left movement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it talks about the mandate for leadership and talks about the second is our online personnel database. And third is Presidential Administration Academy. So its fourth final pillar is our playbook, which will take the policy ideas expressed in the mandate for leadership and transform them into implementation plan for each agency to advocate to the incoming administration. So, and it says in November 2016, American conservatives stood on the verge of greatness. The election of Donald Trump to the presidency was a triumph that offered the best chance to reverse the left's incessant march of progress for its own sake. Many of the best accomplishments, though, happened only in the last year of the Trump administration, after our political appointees have finally figured out the policies and the process of different agencies, and after the right personnel were finally in place. So what this tells me is that they're pretty friendly to Trump. Trump may not be endorsing this, but it's pretty friendly to him.
Right.
So Trump can walk away from this all he wants, but they consider him a friend. But that's all. Look, even if this was Mitt Romney running, even if it was John McCain, even if it was George W. Bush, I don't care who it is. If they're conservative, they would be listed here too. But
yep.
That's basically what it is. So I want to go over this, and we're going to go over this. So we're going to be playing piece, pause, then go to the actual policy in Project 2025. Okay. So I'm going to share. Here.
By the way, the actual document is like hundreds of pages long, guys.
900, almost 1,000 pages. So when somebody goes, I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's on purpose.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's very long-winded. I'm just like, y'all, why do you guys need something so long-winded? Like, just get to the point. They're just as long-winded as Democrats, I'll tell you. So wait, look at this. Oh, I know what I did. Okay. I have messed up something. Here we go. I know exactly where to go. I sent it to you, but I didn't send it. Oh, geez Louise. Okay. We got it. All right. All right, so this is going to be Project 2025 breakdown. So we're going to stop in intervals. So let's go.
To Project 2025, the breakdown. This initiative has sparked widespread discussion and concern, and we're here to dissect every aspect of it. Project 2025 and why it is so alarming. Project 2025 is a comprehensive plan proposed by conservative think tanks and political groups aiming to reshape American governance and policy by the year 2025. It includes a series of bold reforms that touch upon almost every aspect of government and society. This project's sweeping changes threaten to undermine democratic institutions and erode the rights of minority communities. At its core, Project 2025 seeks to reduce the size of the federal government, enhance executive power, and roll back regulations.
Hang on. Now, let me ask you this, Sabs. What is different than what conservatives have been trying to do for the last, say, 50 years?
Not one thing so far. All right, this is not new. It's no different than Project 2024, 2023, Project 1991. It's no different.
Okay, just wanted to check in. All right, let's continue.
The goal is to create a more streamlined, efficient government that operates with minimal interference in the lives of its citizens. However, the specifics of this plan raise significant concerns about the potential for abuse of power and the impact on vulnerable populations. Along with Project 2025, some of you have asked, what is Trump's Agenda 47? Donald Trump has aligned his proposed Agenda 47 with Project 2025. This agenda focuses on restoring what Trump calls American greatness through deregulation, tax cuts, and a strong stance on immigration.
Hang on, let me ask once again, right? What is different than what has been implemented at all? Hang on. Ooh.
Again, nothing so far. I mean, we know, like, this is what conservatives want, like a strong position on immigration, the tax cuts, and like, that's not new.
So I ask, why are people so scared?
Because the media told them to be. This is what the Democratic Party is using this to fearmonger people to come out and support Joe Biden because they know Joe Biden's numbers are so low. Now, let's pretend it wasn't. Let's say Joe Biden was way ahead in the polls against Donald Trump. They probably wouldn't even have to push this. But because it's as close as it is, and Joe Biden is continuing to lose support from African-American voters and Latino voters, which he actually gained support, in 2020, he's lost some of that support, particularly in the swing states, which that's exactly what this election comes down to. Believe it or not, it just comes down to the swing states. So that being said, they have to use something to fearmonger people. And they've been trying to say, oh, you guys are going to get Trump. And they're still saying that, but that doesn't seem to be working because you also have African-American voters that voted for Biden in 2020 now saying they're going to vote for Donald Trump. So they have to use something else.
All right, let's continue.
Trump's vision emphasizes economic growth and national security, but has been criticized for prioritizing corporate interests over those of ordinary Americans.
Nothing different than the Democrat and Republican parties. Let's continue.
Some have also asked, what is the mandate of leadership? The mandate of leadership is a guiding document for Project 2025, providing a detailed blueprint for policy changes. It outlines specific actions for federal agencies to take, aiming to shift power from bureaucrats to elected officials and reduce what proponents see as government overreach. This approach risks dismantling essential protections and services. Why it is considered harmful for minorities. One of the most alarming aspects of Project 2025 is its potential impact on minority communities. The proposed policies could exacerbate existing inequalities and strip away vital protections. Let's explore these concerns in detail. Now let's look at the main parts of Project 2025. This initiative is broken down into several key areas, each with specific goals and plans. Understanding these sections will help us see why this project is so concerning, especially for minority communities. So, Let's take a closer look at what Project 2025 aims to change and why these changes could be harmful. Administrative.
So you notice, why are they talking about Project 2025 on BET?
Because they are saying that it's going to impact minority communities the most.
Let's go.
State reform. Reforming the administrative state involves reducing the power and scope of federal agencies. While proponents argue this will make government more accountable, the fear is that it will weaken the enforcement of civil rights, environmental regulations, and labor protections. For example, one proposal under Project 2025 suggests dismantling the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, or significantly reducing its authority. Proponents believe this will cut down on bureaucratic red tape, making it easier for businesses to operate and boosting economic growth. However, reducing the EPA's power will lead to weaker.
You asked me to pause?
Yeah, so that, I'm sorry, but this has already happened before. Like that's the thing, is like, doesn't everybody remember this happening? Doesn't everyone remember this happening when Trump was president in 2016? Remember, he started to remove some of the climate initiatives, some of the environmental initiatives that already was happening. That's what I don't get.
Can we talk about the Willow Project?
The Willow Project under Joe Biden, same thing. Like, neither one of them have been where they should be when it comes to climate and the environment. And since we want to go there, we want to go down that road. Let's talk about East Palestine, Ohio. Let's talk about Jackson, Mississippi. Okay. Let's talk about Flint, because these particular places, the environmental disasters that happened there happened under Democrat administration. Flint was under Obama. So neither party is where they should be when it comes to environmental protections. That's very important for people to understand. I mean, people in East Palestine, Ohio are still sick. And look how long it took for the president to go visit the people in East Palestine, Ohio. Same thing with Lahaina in Hawaii. Look how long it took for them to get some type of assistance, and then they barely even gave them anything. Yep. So it's been happening under both sides.
Yep. And don't ask President Obama to drink a sip of water.
What? But right. Like, so even Flint was probably the most popular one that people heard about when we're talking about communities in this country that have bad water or poison water, but they're not the only one. There are towns all across the United States that have bad water.
Yeah. Let's continue. Oh, add stage. Okay. Thank goodness. Let's go here. Let's finish this up.
Reducing the EPA's power will lead to weaker environmental protections, resulting in increased pollution and health risks, particularly in low-income and minority communities that are often disproportionately affected by environmental hazards. This illustrates the broader concern that scaling back federal agencies could lead to diminished protections and oversight, harming the very communities that need these safeguards the most. Judiciary.
All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to, for instance, let me see. So I want to go to the actual Project 2025 to see. Hang on. So we'll take a look at that.
And this is why Jaybe and I wanted to break this down for you guys, because a lot of people are not looking at it. They're just listening to what the media is telling them about Project 2025, or celebrities, apparently, because celebrities have been talking about this as well, but they're not actually looking at what Project 2025 says. Again, like I said, it's not good news, but it's not like this isn't something that hasn't already been happening. Yeah. And they know that. A lot of people just don't have time to sit down and rummage through hundreds of pages.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to go first to this. So this is, of course, the policy agenda, and it's actually a book. So of course, right? And then so it talks about taking the reins of government, the White House. So this is the first one that is from Dick Dearborn. I'm gonna have to close these so I know which one is which. So let's go to the White House. And so we're going to go and we're going to just skim over just a couple of key points, and then we'll continue to move on. So this is the White House. Let me enlarge. Okay. And this basically talks about all the different positions within the White House, Deputy Chief of Staff. It goes over the senior advisors. It basically goes over their jobs, what it entails, things like that. So that's one of the things that this first chapter actually goes over. And there's different offices that you probably never heard of, like Office of Public Liaison, like things like that. So this is what it basically goes over, right? A White House Policy Council, which this also goes over. So basically it goes over, what they, the domestic policy. So I want to go to the first one I want to go to is which one should I do? I want to go over Department of Education first. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm. Let's do it. You know how I feel about that.
Yeah. So Department of Education here. It doesn't stay expanded. It's okay. So the Department of Education, it talks about mandate for leadership. And so it talks about overview. So it says, for most of our history, the federal government played a minor role in education. Then over a 14-month period, beginning in 1964, Congress planted the seeds for what will become the U.S. Department of Education, ED, or the department. In July of that year, President LBJ signed into the law the Civil Rights Act of 1964 after Congress reached the consensus that the main mistreatment of Black Americans was no longer tolerable and merited a federal response. In that case, of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act of 1865 and the Higher Education Act of 1965, Congress sought to improve educational outcomes for disadvantaged students by providing additional compensatory funding for low-income children and lower-income college students. So, talking about wanting to overthrow the EPA, the Department of Education, because a lot of times they'll talk about how they want to overthrow the Department of Education. Let me see. So it talks about, let's go to these points: advancing education freedom, empowering families to choose among diverse set of education options is key to reform and improve outcomes. It can be achieved without establishing a new federal program. For example, portability of existing federal education spending to fund families directly, or allowing federal tax credits to encourage voluntary contributions to K-12 education savings accounts managed by charitable nonprofits could significantly advance education alone. Why are we using charity to educate our kids?
Right.
Like, that shouldn't be, like, we shouldn't need to have charity to educate our kids. Why should my child's education or my nieces and nephews' education be at the whims of people doing something out of the goodness of their hearts if they so choose to? In fact, it shouldn't be if they so choose to. It should be something that is done as a society. It should not be, well, we need to, do it via charity. Because if you want to live in the society, that means it has to be guaranteed.
Well, I will say some places already have this in place anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Like, or something similar to this. Like, for example, in Boston, there is the MECA program, which gives parents, it's an educational lottery, and it gives parents the option of choosing to send their kids to one of the, top tier schools in the area instead of the school that's in their community. It's usually offered to students that are in the low income communities. So this, I've told you this before. Public education, all of it can be paid for by the federal government. The same way the federal government pays for the Dodds schools that I attended overseas, the federal government can pay for public education. Public education should not be funded by property taxes. That's how you get out of this. But you're right. The charity shouldn't be responsible for paying for your child's education. This is ridiculous.
Yeah. So one of the things I also wanted to point to here says restoring state and local control over education funding as Washington begins to downsize its intervention in educating. Existing funding should be sent to the states as grants over which they have full control, enabling states to put federal funding towards any lawful education purpose under state law. So that's one of the things that they want to do. Now, one of the things I want to point out is, why did we need for Lyndon B. Johnson to create the Department of Education in the first place?
Right, because the schools were not equal.
Yeah. So that seems like a problem that still persists today. So therefore, it should be equal among all states still. And if you get rid of the Department of Education, are all schools going to be equal across all the states?
No, but the schools aren't equal across the states now.
Yeah. And so because of that, then if you're still going to have inequality, ultimately, because the inequality is due to funding. Because if you do not fund the schools, then of course they'll say, oh, we have the Department of Education. But if you're not funding the schools equally, then you're still undermining the education of children, because one child may get a better education in Philadelphia versus in Georgia. And how many times have I heard that kids who moved from up north that came down here south and they were like, I already learned this.
That was me. Yeah, again, because like I said, like the resources for the schools comes from property taxes. So obviously, if you live in areas or states that are a little bit more wealthy, like Massachusetts is a wealthy state, right? New York is a pretty wealthy state. California is a pretty wealthy state. Now, in those states, there's also large income inequality. There's a huge gap in between the wealthy and those that are like working poor. But what that means is that you're more likely to get a more resourced education than you are if you were to move down south, like to South Carolina, and you went to school in like Denmark, South Carolina. That's just the reality, because they don't have the funds to have as many resources. So the more resources you have, that's better for the students, because that means that we're talking a less or a lower student teacher ratio. We're talking about computers that actually work. Okay, that's the key, that actually work. Students being able to have SAT prep, et cetera, all those types of things. For those of you that have attended those schools, you were able to have all those resources because the property taxes paid for it, because the people who lived in that area were making good money and owned property. So that's what it all goes back to. It's just such a broken system. And I'm starting to see why more parents are choosing to homeschool their kids.
Yeah. And the problem is that if you're not, giving kids an equal and equitable education, then therefore there are going to be some students left behind, and that's the way it is. And it creates different tiers in our society, because you're not treating kids equally and equitably in accordance with the education that they need to have. And so this is why I say, no, don't get rid of the Department of Education, but in fact, start federally funding all schools equally, so that every child has the same amount that is dedicated to them, so that they can have the same education. A kid who goes to school in, West Palm, here in Florida should not be able to get a better education simply because of the zip code that they live in, versus a kid that lives in Pine Hills here in Orlando gets a worse education. That's absolutely unconscionable, and that should not be. But my question is, what is the difference between what conservatives have been planning for the last 50 years compared to what they have in Project 2025?
Right. And then also, too, I think people need to look at what the Department of Education actually does, because like I said, the Department of Education has not fixed school inequality all of these years. It's there. But what is it actually? How is it helping that? It's not helping fix inequality in the school system, because as long as those schools are funded by property taxes, that is not going to change. And the way that you really fix that, again, like I said, the federal government can fund all these public schools. That way, everybody has the same resources and access to the same resources and the same education. Private schools will still always be around. But the reality is, if you know that the school in your area, the public school in your area is well resourced, maybe that may convince some people not to send their kids to private school.
But let me ask you this: isn't it also kind of a feedback loop when, if the schools are underfunded and the schools are doing good, then that pushes parents to go to privatization? Because even though the Department of Education is there, it forces parents to go, well, see, government. It forces the conservatives to go, see, government doesn't work when you do not resource schools properly. And so then the parents end up sending their kids to charter schools and private schools anyway.
It's true, but the Department of Education is still corporate.
That's true too.
So that's the other thing. So again, like, the Department of Education is going to do what works for the corporate interest that's attached to it. And that's part of the reason why these schools are not receiving more. That's what I'm saying. That's part of the reason why these schools that are underfunded are not getting better. A lot of these agencies, and you guys will see this if you follow the money, a lot of these agencies, that it sounds like a good thing. The name sounds positive. But if you look at like who's funding it, and you look at where all the money's coming from, the donors, the people that come to those events to support that entity, a lot of times that you'll see it's all corporate capture. So if you can't get the corporate money out, and we see that these schools are still failing, does it really make sense to keep the Department of Education if it's not improving those schools? So this is something that we do have to look at some point.
Yeah. So let's go to the next one I want to go to. We were talking about the EPA. This one is the Environmental Protection Agency. This one, like we were saying earlier, what's the difference between the Biden administration as well? Because they were both focusing on drilling, and they weren't really focused on the environment like they should have. So it says, back to basics, EPA structure and missions should be greatly circumscribed to reflect the principles of cooperative federalism and limited government. This will require significant restructuring and streamlining of the agency to reflect the following. State leadership. EPA should build earnest relationships with state and local officials to assume more supportive role by sharing resources and expertise, recognizing the primary role in making choices about the environment belongs to the people who live in it. Sorry, go ahead.
So this is another one where with the EPA, are they really doing these environmental protections to their fullest, to 100%? Because I met, when I was at the Julian Assange rally, the first one that I went to, there was a woman there that spoke. I have to look up her name. There are a lot of speakers, but there was a woman there that spoke that was a whistleblower at the EPA. And one of the things that she revealed is that, the EPA is also captured by corporate money. That's also why, again, like you said, the oil drilling permits, the Willow Project, all that kind of stuff. I mean, we have the EPA right now, and it's under Biden administration, but those oil projects are still going through. So a lot of these things they still have that corporate capture. That's why. So again, like I was telling people about Congress, right? 99.9% of the time, they are not going to pass legislation that does not have some type of corporate interest attached to it.
Yep. Now, I'm going to move on to the next one. So, shrinking the size of the EPA. I mean, EPA, we just need to get corporations out of the EPA. I think that would actually make it work a whole lot better. But of course, they want, because conservatives are like, oh, we want privatization to reign supreme, because if privatization reigns supreme, that means there's competition. But as I talked about on Tuesday, when it comes to, like, for instance, Tempur Sealy tried to buy Mattress Firm for $4 billion, which basically means you're monopolizing the market. And then once you have a monopoly, no matter how many people complain, you're going to just do whatever the hell you want, because that's the problem with corporations. Now, I want to go to this one. So we're going to go into healthcare. So Department of Health and Human Services. So this one is going to go protecting life, conscience, and bodily integrity. Says Secretary should pursue a robust agenda to protect the fundamental right to life, protecting conscience rights, and uphold bodily integrity rooted in biological realities, not ideology. From the moment of conception, every human being possesses inherent dignity, worth, and our humanity does not depend on our age, stage of development, race, or abilities. The Secretary must ensure all HHS programs and activities are rooted in the deep respect for innocent human life from day one until natural death. Abortion and euthanasia are not healthcare. And the funny part is they really want to get into gender identity. They are heavy in this on this part. And my question is why are you guys so stuck on that when you want government to get out the way, but yet you're having government get into people's pants?
But that's the whole thing, JB. As much as they talk about small government, they really don't want small government across the board. If you want small government, why are you supporting expanding the police state? Why are you supporting cop cities? Mm-hmm. So that, I think policing's one of the best ones to point to when conservatives say, like, well, we don't want big government or whatever. You do when you're supporting expanding the police state. So it's just certain things. But that part there where they said that abortion is not health care, you have to go to the doctor to have an abortion, correct?
Yeah. But isn't that provider autonomy? Hang on. They talk about, oh, we want body autonomy. Okay, well, isn't that a woman's right to choose?
But that's another hypocritical point that comes from the right, is that they'll say that, and this is not everybody, but a lot will say that they want bodily autonomy, but not when it comes to the right to choose.
Yeah. I mean, body autonomy, if somebody wants to transition their gender, isn't that body autonomy?
Not when it comes to,
it's like the hypocrisy. But the thing is like, what is different than what they've been doing for the last 50 years that is set differently out in this plan?
But that's the thing. And I think that's what you and I, like, when we were like, we're going to go over this or whatever, that was one of the things that you and I said, in private, is like, this plan isn't, these things are already happening. Yeah. But the Democratic Party is pretending like this is a new thing. This isn't new. The problem is a lot of Americans, because most of us are busy working, or you're raising your family. If you have kids, that's the job too. So the problem is a lot of people just don't have time to sit down and look at what this really says. But people do have time to, just turn on the TV. If you're doing chores or something in the background, you can have the TV on. You can listen to the news when you're driving to work or whatever. You have time to do that because you're like multitasking. But most people do not have time to sit down and read hundreds and hundreds of pages. And to be honest with you, our congressmen, like our representative, don't have time to read hundreds of pages of these bills. They don't even read these bills. They just pass.
Yep. All right, so let's go back to the video and we'll go into the judiciary.
Judiciary. Project 2025 calls for appointing judges who adhere to strict constitutionalist principles. This could lead to a judiciary less likely to support progressive policies and more inclined to roll back civil rights advancements. For example, if judges who strictly adhere to constitutionalist principles are appointed, they might be less supportive of decisions like Brown versus Board of Education, which mandated the desegregation of schools, or Obergefell versus Hodges, which legalized same-sex marriage. These judges may also be more likely to overturn or undermine precedents that protect voting rights, affirmative action, and other civil rights initiatives. Such a shift in the judiciary could lead to significant setbacks in the legal protections and rights that minorities and marginalized groups have fought hard to secure over the decades.
This has already happened.
Yeah.
Didn't the Supreme Court overturn affirmative action in college admission? That already happened. I mean, it's just you've seen a number of places now that have removed DEI. I think it started with the universities and now going to employment as well. MIT has removed it from their employment. They've removed it. So these things have already happened. I don't even know what to like. And by the way, this happened under Biden's administration. Affirmative action was overturned. Affirmative action in the universities was overturned under Biden.
Let's get into the Department of Justice. Oh, geez. All right. So one of the things that they talk about, I find it hilarious, is, let me see. Oh, let's start here. It says the Department of Justice has a long and noble history. Bullshit. Says that history has began with the creation of the Office of Attorney General pursuant to the Judiciary Act of 1789 and has continued through the creation of the department in 1870, the formation of the Federal Bureau of Investigation in 1908, reforms following the terrorist attacks of September 11th, and the present day. Properly understood within the framework of the constitutional republic that values order, liberty, and the Department of Justice has two primary functions: protecting public safety and defending the rule of law. So one of the things that I want to go to is this. They're talking about Russian collusion, talking about being false. They wanted to address that. Hunter Biden. There's a lot of different things in here, but one of the things I want to get to is, let me see here.
You mentioned Russia collusion. That's interesting too, because again, the Huru movement was attacked under the Biden administration.
Mm-hmm. It says this evidence shows, the overwhelming majority of crimes in the United States are properly handled at the state and local levels, but the DOJ can provide critical technical support for local law enforcement to play a critical agenda-setting role with respect to the department's core responsibilities: enforcing our immigration laws, combating domestic and international criminal enterprises, protecting federal civil rights, and combating foreign espionage. The federal government has primary authority and accordingly accountability. The evidence shows that the Biden administration's Department of Justice has failed to protect law-abiding citizens and has ignored the most basic obligations. It has become once utterly unserious and dangerously politicized. Prosecution and charging decisions are infused with racial and partisan political double standards. Immigration laws are ignored. Now, this is bullshit. I'm going to tell you why. Because Joe Biden has literally been deporting more people than even the Trump administration. So that's BS. Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead with the FBI part, because I want to comment on that.
The FBI harasses protesting parents, branded domestic terrorists by some partisans, while working diligently to shut down politically disfavored speech on the pretext of misinformation or disinformation. So we can talk about the Twitter files.
Yeah. I mean,
And
there's the Twitter files. I mean, but again, like, this is hilarious to me because, again, both sides are exaggerating here. Exaggerations. And with the FBI, so again, he said like Biden's had, I guess, some type of bias or whatever when it comes to certain racial groups under justice. So I just want to say this again for everyone who's listening. The Uhuru movement with Chairman Amali Yeshitela, they were charged under the Biden administration.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Fred Hampton was killed in 1969. Who was president in 1969? Was it Lyndon Johnson?
You asking me?
Yeah.
Oh, let me look it up. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
I have to check.
Richard Nixon, Tricky Dick. Tricky Dick was the president in 1969. So Richard Nixon's Department of Justice was the one who killed Fred Hampton. So if they're talking about going after people, right, that aren't doing anything wrong, like what did the Black Panthers do wrong? So
They were armed. They were armed.
Conservative party, huh?
They were armed.
Oh, but I thought the Republicans and the conservatives believed in the Second Amendment rights.
I told you it's so much like same thing. Like when you look at Ronald Reagan, remember the Black Panthers? They marched to the Capitol in California, and they were armed. Mm-hmm. And that's when Reagan was like, "Oh, we need to get tougher on gun laws."
Yeah,
it's a mess.
Yeah, but what is different? I don't see it. Last 50 years, what is different? All right,
it's the same thing we've been hearing them say.
So yeah. All right, let's go to the next piece in the video. I can't even get through this entire video. It's going to take us a long ass time, but all right, so let's get it. Economics.
Policies proposed under Project 2025 focus on tax cuts, deregulation, and reducing government spending. While these measures might stimulate economic growth, they could also widen the wealth gap and reduce funding for social programs that support low-income and minority communities. For example, one of the central economic proposals of Project 2025 is significant tax cuts for corporations and high...
Oh, what? Are you serious? Tax cuts for corporations?
Surprise.
Oh my God, Sabby! I didn't know they were going to do that.
What?
Oh my God!
And then this is the other part we got to add. We have to remind people that Joe Biden continued some of Trump's tax policies.
Girl, you said it before I could even. You ruined the surprise, Sabs. Oh, you ruined the surprise. Let me share. Here we go. Boom. Democrats, for all their promises, didn't dare to repeal the Trump's tax cuts after all. President Joe Biden signed the Inflation Reduction Act into law last month, adding to a long history of legislation that will achieve the opposite of what it claims. Consider the quality of K-12 education after the No Child Left Behind Act, or the affordability of health care after the Affordable Care Act. Already, the Congressional Budget Office projects that the law will have zero impact on inflation. This was no surprise to Americans who, by a 3-to-1 margin, expect the law to increase inflation, not reduce it. Yeah, one surprise about the new tax law is not yet making headlines. In passing their own version of tax reform, the Democrats left the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act completely intact, despite 5 years of promises to repeal it.
Told you. Because again, they all work for the corporations. So you guys see the connection now? So what is happening is that corporate media has you focusing on the Democratic Party versus the Republican Party. Everybody's like freaking out and in shambles because what was not supposed to happen is happening, where Donald Trump is running again, and it is looking like now he is going to win some of these swing states that he did not win in 2020. That's the way it looks right now. So Joe Biden was not supposed to be neck and neck against Donald Trump in the polls going into re-election. That was not supposed to happen according to the Democrat strategists, but that is happening. So what are they trying to do? They have to find a way to try to fearmonger the people. Not to mention, you're talking about black voters that have moved over towards Donald Trump. Donald Trump has a higher polling percentage with black voters now than he did when he ran in 2016, than he did in 2020. So that number for him has increased, right? So they're like, oh, what else can we use to fearmonger people and pressure them to come out and continue to support the Democratic Party? Project 2025. This will scare people. But if most people sit down and read it, they'll realize these things are already happening. A lot of these things have already happened, and we have a Democrat president, and some of these things are still continuing. They're still continuing because, again, they all belong to the donor class. It doesn't matter if it's a Democrat or a Republican. They all are a part of that donor class. So they're going to do what the donors want. The only reason that you even hear mainstream or corporate media talking about Joe Biden needs to step down is because the donor class has already spoken, and the donor class said that they are starting to pull their money and put it elsewhere. That's why. It's the same thing with corporate media. It's controlled by the donor class. Look up the shareholders of CNN, ABC News, NBC, Fox News. There are all these billionaires, and then you have companies like Vanguard and BlackRock. They control it all. So at the end of the day, it comes down to what the donor class want. And I want to tell you guys about that study from Gillian, professor from Princeton. Gillian, I've shown this before. He conducted a study that showed most of the time, working class people, poor people, and middle class people do not get anything for their vote. The people who get something for their vote are wealthy people. That is because electoral politics, particularly in that two-party system, is aligned with corporate interests and the donor class. So that's why wealthy people, at the end of the day, for the most part, they're usually fine. Regardless if the president is a Democrat or Republican, most of these presidents are not heavily hitting the pockets of the wealthy people. Joe Biden keeps saying we're going to make the wealthy pay their fair share, but you notice it hasn't happened yet, right? The whole time he's been in office, has it happened? No, it hasn't, because they all working for the same people. Just one is up under a D and one is up under R. So until people understand that, they will constantly be fooled by this Republican versus Democrat game, when at the end of the day, it's just one corporate party.
Yep. I also want to go over this really quick. This is out of the Department of Labor. Overview. Some of the labor agencies covered in this chapter include the Department of Labor, the Equal Opportunity Employment Commission, the National Labor Relations Board, the National Mediation Board, the Federal Mediation and Conciliation Services, and the Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation. The Congress has provided these agencies with the authority to enforce a wide range of federal statutes regulating workplace conduct, workforce development, employee benefits, labor organization, bargaining, and international labor conditions. So I want to go to needed reforms. They say reverse DEI revolution in labor policy. Let me ask you this. Why did we even need DEI in the first place?
Because people are more likely to hire people that look like them. That's not my opinion. There are studies that show that over and over again. And most of the time, the hiring managers are white. So they're more likely to hire people. And let's go a step further. And I can tell you about this from the higher ed experience. Working in higher ed, I can tell you that a lot of times it's not just I'm going to hire someone that looks like me. I'm going to hire someone that went to the same type of school that I went to. So you can have people that will come in that have the experience, years of experience, great during the interview, make it through all the rounds. But at the end of the day, like they will hire the person who has less experience, but looks like them, but also because they went to Stanford just like them. Yep. So there is that network within the elite institutions where if you went to one of the Ivies or any of the other elite academic institutions, you will be given preference at a lot of these companies over someone that went to a state school that may have more experience than you. So the reason why the DEI was implemented is because people were being overlooked based on their skin color, based on the school that they went to, based on their zip code. These things happen.
And remember, it's not just class, it's also identity too. That's why things like DEI had to be implemented. And the thing is, a lot of times people will go, because it was affirmative action before, it's DEI now. There's no difference than what it was before. They wanted to get rid of affirmative action back in the day. By the way, if you're trying to get rid of affirmative action, that means you're trying to screw over a whole bunch of white women.
There's that part too, because that's another thing that a lot of people may not realize. When it comes to employment, white women benefit from affirmative action the most. This is something that conservatives consistently get wrong. And I don't know if some people just don't know or they just get it wrong on purpose. But if you look at the data, it's there and it shows you. This is something like Marcel Dixon has talked about this on the campaign trail often, like a lot of times, just to make people aware of this. When it comes to employment, we're not talking about the collegiate system. When it comes to employment, under affirmative action, white women actually benefited from it most, because once they changed, they made affirmative action to include women, that also gave that opportunity to white women. So people have to do their research and they have to understand how these things work. Because when people say get rid of affirmative action, people shouldn't be given this opportunity just because, they're a minority and they have to work for it. You're actually taking that opportunity away from a lot of white women.
I also want to share this because this is what just because these guys have educations doesn't mean they're smart. They're educated fools. It says eliminate racial classifications in critical race theory trainings. Here's my question. If critical race theory is, and correct me if I'm wrong, because you were an academic advisor, right, in a university. Isn't critical race theory isn't it a education course in law school?
It's not just in law school. I mean, it's available in other programs as well. But it was never something I was forced to take. I think this is also being exaggerated. And also, some people are calling CRT anything that has to deal with the history of Black Americans in this country too. Some people have expanded it to that point. There are some schools in Texas that are teaching people that slavery was, not connected to the Civil War. There are schools that have already started to do, and they're trying to downplay slavery because they're like, no, that's CRT. Let's not get into all of that. So people have exaggerated this as well too. That's why it's so. What's sad is that, again, most people are not going to look into this. They're just going to believe the fear-mongering that's coming from both sides.
Yep. Unfortunately, that's the way it is. And they're talking about this in the Department of Labor. They're trying to, get rid of certain aspects that would actually create more equity and equality within workplaces, because unfortunately, if y'all actually did it before, after slavery was abolished, then we wouldn't need these policies. And yet, here we go. But the question again is, what is the conservatives doing in the past that is brand new for Project 2025.
Right. Nothing different. And this is why like JB and I wanted to like talk to you guys about this, because the fear mongering is just, it's exaggerated. Like when you look at it, you see, oh yeah, these are things that they've been talking about for years, years, right? Can I show them the Heritage Foundation really quick?
Sure. Let me stop sharing. Oh, am I still sharing? No, I'm not. Okay.
I don't think so. So look at this with the Heritage Foundation. This is something I just want to show you guys. Again, this is not new. So if you look at their website, it tells you right here, for 50 years, the Heritage Foundation has led the way for reforms in every policy area, from taxes and regulation to crime and national defense. This is not new. It has been around for over 50 years. Look at some of the things they mention. They talk about Reagan's administration.
Mm-hmm.
They go into the historic 1996 welfare reform. They talk about expansion school choice. They go into 2007 and 2018, preventing amnesty and multiple immigration bills. They've been doing this, guys. This stuff is not new. This is what I want people to understand and really get from this. Then it says here, the Trump administration embraced 64% of the heritage policy prescriptions through its annual budget, regulatory guidance, and other actions. So even though Donald Trump is trying to distance himself from this, he was very much connected to it. So, like, I mean, they put it on the website.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but it's true.
Yep. And then, of course, due to the sake of time, they talk about also, a lot of people who are within my community, the LGBTQ community, are also afraid because they're talking, about basically erasing people who are transgender and queer and things like that. I'm going to ask again, what have they done before that that's brand new now? Because they've always been trying to do that. Now, I have a couple of questions that I would like to ask before we continue, because I do have something that I want to say. And I don't know if this is really going to, hit people in the brain more, but can you hear me?
Yeah, I was just laughing because of the brain thing.
Right.
Hit people in the brain.
So, I'll put it this way. Electoral politics is like having two parents. Now, I talked about this on Nico House show earlier today. You have a mom, that's the Democrats, that allows for abuse to happen consistently by the dad, which is the Republican Party. And if the dad keeps abusing the kids, but the mom doesn't actually take the kids out of the house, but keeps making excuses and even keeps making conditions for the dad to actually harm the kids, then should you even leave the kids with the mother?
Oh, JB, you got to clip that.
The reason why I'm asking is because when you have child endangerment, that's just as bad as having an abuser. I like to call this civilian endangerment. The Democratic Party has been putting you and me in danger for years. But they've been gaslighting and they've been lying to every single one of us and saying, oh, well, if you guys don't behave, dad's going to come home and he's going to beat you guys if you don't do what I say. And then guess what? You still keep allowing the abuse to continue. And this is what it is. Project 2025 is them saying, if you don't do what we say, dad's going to come home. And dad is going to beat you guys to a pulp if you guys don't do what we say. but yet the mother's is what she's doing what you say. She's making you eat dog food. She's making you eat dog food and saying, well, if you don't eat this, your dad's going to come home and he's going to beat you guys to the pulp and you're not going to be able to eat anything. That's what Project 2025 is. This is a diversion. This is good cop, bad cop. This is, well, I know you didn't actually do it. Just let us know. Look, if you just confess to the crime, then we'll get you a plea deal and then you'll be free to go. It's okay. We understand you. That's what the Democrats do. The Republicans are the ones that are trying to make you scared, and then they'll be pushing you up against the wall and be like, hey, look, you don't want a piece of this. And then the Democrats are behind them. I wouldn't test them if I were you. This is the bottleneck of when you're an army going in one direction and then the opposing army cuts you off, but then the other part of the army is already there waiting when you try to escape. That's what this is. And so the reason why me and Sabby are talking about how everything that they're talking about is something that they have been advertising, that they've been wanting to do for years. The thing is if these people actually wanted to avert you from Project 2025, they would have done it a long time ago, but they don't want to. And if some of these Democrats, like for instance, DSA, if they actually wanted to avert you from Project 2025, they would not put you at risk by allowing for a Democratic Party that keeps us in this abusive relationship to remain. They would start endorsing people of other parties that do not subscribe to these corporations. And it gets on my nerves because a lot of people will go, well, all we got to do is just avert this disaster. There will always be a disaster. I'm sick and tired of people going, oh, well, Donald Trump. Back then, it was, oh, John McCain. Oh, Mitt Romney. Oh, George H.W. Bush. Oh, Ronald Reagan. It always comes around. When are you going to stop believing the stripper and you're going to actually go home to your wife? It doesn't make no damn sense. It gets on my nerves.
Don't believe the stripper, guys. Go home to your wife.
Y'all keep, and the crazy part is, it's like, oh, black people are going, and then black people who are deciding to vote for Donald Trump, why are you believing a con artist? Why are you believing Orange Biden?
Because people still think that Superman is coming. People still think that there's a hero. People think that, and I've said this over and over again, and I'll continue to say it, no one person is coming to save you.
No.
And some people don't like to hear that, but that's the reality. There is no Superman outside of Marvel Comics.
Yeah. And then on top of that,
sorry.
The dudes in the hood talking about, oh man, I did better under Trump, and then he gave us a stimulus check. Bro, you're gonna turn your back on your family, on your country for a stymie?
Well, not to mention the stimulus check was already what money you had already paid into anyway. Yeah. Like they were basically giving you back what you had.
You guys are tripping out over a stimulus check?
You should have been given so much more. And that's the thing I don't understand. I think, with voters in this country, when I compare them to voters like in France, for example, the people in France know, they'll let you know we deserve more. They got into the streets and protested for weeks because Macron increased the retirement age by 2 years. And the French said, oh, hell to the no. And they just went and started burning things down. But in this country, I think that people are so used to just getting the bare minimum and being conditioned into believing that that is enough, that people don't get together and say, hell no, we deserve more. And we do deserve more. And we do deserve better. You deserved more during a pandemic than these stupid, measly stimulus checks. You should have had recurring checks throughout the height of the pandemic until you were able to get back up on your feet and the businesses reopened in the states for those of us that were locked down. Like, and then you say that and people are like, that's crazy. We don't have the money for that. But then fast forward all the billions that they're giving to Ukraine. People finding out they're giving $3.8 billion a year to Israel. They always had the money for you. They always had the money to give you what you need so that everyone in this country can actually have a true American dream. They chose to give that money towards the military industrial complex, towards other countries to keep the wars going, and to Wall Street. When the American people lost their homes, even under Democrat President Barack Obama sat up there and told people, I'm going to bail out the banks. He didn't bail out those people. Their credit was ruined. We're talking about old people that lost their homes and never got them back. So people have to understand, again, at the end of the day, corporate interest always comes first. And once you understand that, then you will understand why things move the way that they do in this country, why they work the way that they do. And then you can stop playing this cycle game of, oh, the next presidential term, that guy will be so much better. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's a Democrat. It doesn't matter if it's a Republican. They're all a part of the same system and the same club, and you're not in it.
Yep, absolutely. And in fact, here's what I said, and people lost their damn minds. I said, I'm going to say it. Project 2025 is a lucrative fundraising tool for the Democratic and Republican Party. It gets you scared so that you donate more money to Dems, and it gets ultra-right conservatives hyped to think the GOP will carry this out. In the end, the corporations win. I also said, in the end, both parties are holding you hostage out of fear.
It's true.
Sorry.
It's true. You think about it, even now, like Joe Biden is saying, oh, these elites, the elites are trying to tell me what to do. Come on. This isn't new. Now, all of a sudden, you want to admit this? We've been telling you who is really running things and who's really controlling these politicians. Now, all of a sudden, he wants to put it back on them or whatever. It is what it is. But at the end of the day, when you think about the fact that at one point during me and Jaybe's lifetime, there was a political movement around this country, mobilizing people, bringing people together. There was a movement that was calling out the billionaires, and even that person sold you out for corporate interest. Bernie Sanders sold you out for corporate interest.
Yeah.
I hope people get it.
Yeah, Bernie is establishment. People need to recognize that. So my thing is that, look, should we be concerned with Project 2025? Do I think Project 2025 is bad? Yes. Do I think it's scary? Absolutely. Is it new news? No, not at all. And on top of it, if we truly want to avert disaster of Project 2025, then should we really be going with a candidate that goes in the completely opposite direction? Shouldn't we go with a party or an independent candidate that goes in the opposite direction? Not RFK Jr. I'm sorry. No. I know people are going to be like, but RFK? No, he's a Democrat with an I next to his name. There ain't no difference to him than Bernie fucking Sanders right now. I do not see anything different between them both. So I'm going to put that out there. And if people of RFK Jr.'s campaign dislike me or want to write me a letter, don't bother. I don't care, because I'm calling it like I see it. But the thing is that ultimately, look, the independent candidates and the third party candidates, the real ones, they are the ones that are going in more in the opposite direction. Now, if you don't want to go that route of voting for anybody, I get it. But the thing is, there's more than you can do to just mobilize. You can also organize. And I talk about this all the time. Look, let's start getting on the ground, doing mutual aid, building dual power, so that we can get this system overturned, so we can actually get something new that's egalitarian for good for everybody.
Yep.
Let's make our own Project 30 or something like that for us, for the working people, so that we won't be subject to fear-mongering from the Democrats or the Republicans. Because I'm going to tell you right now, if you are a Republican or if you're a conservative, the Republican Party actually uses you, especially if you are working class white, they're using you just like the black people are being used by the Democratic Party. No
That's
different.
right. And I will say the left has to, like, people that are left, real left in this country, have to actually want to win and they have to want to have a movement. And that means that you have to put egos aside. You have to not allow infiltrators to move you away from something that you're building or you're working on. You have to stop those things from happening. There is a number of times you're going to have infiltrators, but you have to be smart enough to know the game that's being played. So you can't let that sway you from doing what you're doing. But the left has to want to win. And I think a lot of people that were energized to do just that, they lost that motivation, after, the past couple of years, because we haven't had wins on the national level. There have been progressive policies that have passed in the states, but not on the national level. And I think that's why some people are just, unmotivated to do those types of things. Jaybe and I organize. People see us on the show, but we also do mutual aid. We organize within our communities. Like, this isn't our end all be all. And I think that's the part that, everybody don't see all the time. I try to stream or we try to record sometimes when we do those things. We can't do it all the time because sometimes people do not, want to be on camera and stuff like that. And I get that. But the thing is like, if you're sitting around waiting on a presidential candidate to solve all the problems for you, you are going to be very disappointed, because at the end of the day, even that president can only do so much without the approval of Congress. There's some things that they can do by executive order. There's some things they can't do by executive order. So at the end of the day, a lot of these things go back to the states. This is why I continue to push the ballot initiatives. This is why I continue to tell people, organize in your state. You need to know who your city councilors are. Everybody knows who's running for president, but I can't tell you how many people I can run into and say, who's your city councilor? And most people don't even know. And a lot of the laws that are being passed in your state and in your area, which directly will affect you, just get overlooked because people aren't paying attention to what's happening on the local level. You got to pay attention to that. So that's why I always tell people, and from the very beginning, even we were FHL, what did we tell people? Organize within your community.
Yep. That mission still hasn't changed. The name may have changed, but the mission still hasn't.
And elections come and go. And Jaybe and I, we already going to tell you, after November, there will be a presidential election. he or she or whatever will win. And at the end of the day, whether it's the person you like or not, after November, that first week in November, the election is going to be over. And then what are you going to go back to? This is why the organizing piece is so important. This is why the local action is so important, because this is when a lot of people will they'll lose hope right after the election. Like, oh God, this again. Okay, well, I'll just go dormant. And then next election cycle, then they come back around again, hoping there's another person that's going to save the day. And it's a continuous cycle. Cycle. So you got to organize on your local level as well.
Yeah. Meanwhile, people are still going to be homeless after November 5th. You're still going to have student loans to pay after November 5th. People are still going to be exterminated in Gaza after November 5th. You're still going to not have enough money for food. You're still not going to have enough money for electricity after November 5th. So the thing is, like, this has to keep on going. Your landlord does not wait, on 4-year cycles like, oh, well, you're getting a new president. Okay. Nah, they don't wait on that. So this is why we talk about organizing as well. Here's the poll. Are you afraid of Project 2025? 13% say no. 69% say, 13% say yes. 69% said no, and then 18% said not sure. Did you expect it to be a different?
Where's the number? There's usually a number up top that tells you how many people voted.
Sorry, I have it too low. 396, 357.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So if you guys haven't took the poll, make sure to take the poll. But yeah, that's for the most part. Most people say that they're not afraid of Project 2025. My thing is like, look, if I think we should be in fear of Project 2025, but the thing is that it's already been happening. The thing is that what are we doing to mobilize that actually goes completely against it? The Democrats aren't doing anything to go against it. The Democrats aren't going to try to prevent it. They just use it as a fundraising tool, just like Donald Trump is a fundraising tool for the Democrats too.
They haven't tried to do anything against it this entire time.
No.
So that lets you know.
Yeah. Put you in danger so that they can make money.
That's right. I got to head out, JP.
Okay, I'm going to read the super chats and then head out.
Bye.
Bye-bye, Sabs. All right, so let's go to the chats and let's go to the super chat. Actually, let me go to Rockfin really quick first, just to get that. And I don't know if anybody sent us any Rumble rants, but I'll check for that too. But we'll see. All right, so let's go to the chat here on Rockfin. Gregory Pro said, thank you very much for the tip. He says, libertarians are falling apart. Colorado branch voted to have RFK on their ballot instead of Chase. Mises caucus attacking Chase with children cannot consent regarding trans issue. Now I'm firing back at the children cannot consent crowd with their thoughts on circumcision, and most are cowards to answer it because it'll expose their hypocrisy. Also, can't support Greens for past C-19 policy. Just to let you know, Geography Pro, the presumptive nominee for the Green Party, Dr. Joe Stein, is actually against mandates. Just to let you know, if you have not noticed. But yes, the whole thing about children cannot consent, then if that's the case, then we need to stop circumcisions at once. And we also need to stop parents from piercing their kids' ears, especially with little girls. No more pierced ears on little kids under the age of 18, if that's the case. All right. Oh, but what about the whole issue surrounding puberty blockers? Okay, well, what about the cisgender children who are starting puberty way too early? What about them? You want to stop puberty blockers for them too? So that's my whole thing. It's like, come on now. I don't want to spend the whole hour on this, but it's just weird. You're focusing on people's genitals like that. Anyways, Hepcar says, FBI misinformation. Okay, that's good. They'll still target the left, but at least COVID truth could get out. Yeah, but here's the thing. Like, the FBI will still target those of us who actually want to tell the truth. So they're still going to have a ulterior motive, right? I get it though. Roger Meadows says, time the grassroots kick in to higher gear and start hitting them in the states. Anything you want done, any regulations or regulatory agency you'd like to enforce federally can be emulated statewide. Fed has CFPB, New York State has DFS, Fed has EPA, New York State has DEP. Hit them hard in the states. Tax cuts for corporations, you say? I say remove their corporate charter from operating in the state and reissue a worker co-op charter public banks. Thank you so very much for that, Roger. And I'm glad to see you're doing okay. Man, good to see you. All right, so let's go to this one. Natural Healer Mom says we need to take it seriously, not embody fear, but understanding the significance. Christian nationalism is real. Don't underestimate history. Yes, the thing is that, yes, it has been happening. And this is not an understatement. This is saying, why are we listening to the Democrats fear monger about this? And then allow them to talk us into going to a party that basically put them there in the first place? Like, the reason why we have Donald Trump is because of Hillary Clinton. The reason why a lot of people are disillusioned is because the Democrats actually didn't do the job of actually helping secure the material conditions. And people can say, well, the Republicans blocked, but the thing is that the Democrats have had super majorities before. They've had majorities in the House and Senate. They've had the entire government locked down, basically. And yet they still did not do what they needed to do because they're in bed with the corporations, just like the Republicans. Good to see Nico in the house saying squad. Good to see you, Nico. Thank you so very much. And it was a good show. If you guys have not, I was on Nico House's show earlier today. Go ahead and give that a look and go ahead and give him subscribe too. Brian comes in. We have center right and far right. Those are our choices. Yeah, the Democratic Party is a center right party. It is. That's just what it is. Jay Tolbert says, you think corporate elitist Democrats would love the Heritage Foundation. If it weren't for them, Obamacare wouldn't exist. Just saying, yes, Sabby actually covered this about how the Heritage Foundation was really the blueprint for Obamacare. So when we talk about how the Heritage Foundation and all these conservative think tanks, they implement policy that are also adopted by the Democrats, then yes. So what is different than what we are hearing in Project 2025 that they have been wanting to do? And why have the Democratic Party been placing us in danger constantly for the last 50 years? Katie Lewis says the EPA hasn't stopped the military from polluting the earth or the president's desire to drill oil. Bingo. One of the biggest polluters on earth is the U.S. military. Nick Cruz says, great show with Jaybe earlier. Thank you so much, Nick. Great. Roger Meadow says, no, you're right. This ain't good news, but neither is the new news. Patrick says property taxes keep going up, yet school budgets keep getting cut in poor neighborhoods. Stop believing that. And the funny thing is that the property tax is going up, but the thing is that if the property taxes are going up and the school budgets are getting cut, then that means where's that money going? Because it's not going to the people who it should go to, which is our kids. That's my problem. Katie Lewis says they're really trying to convince black people that when Trump gets in, we'll get back to getting lynched by our white neighbors en masse, and there'll be nothing we can do about it. There's a lot of black people who are armed in this country. Professor says Trump does not know what to call us. LOL, black jobs. Justin B says most people that have decided to not vote Biden and are thinking about voting for Trump are only thinking about Trump because they don't know there's a good alternative in Jill Stein. Look, and a lot of times they'll think, well, I just want to be on the side that wins. Some people are actually like that. They just want to be on the side that wins. And my thing is like, I want to be on the side, what do you agree with? And if you actually agree with Trump's policies, how have the policies benefited all of us materially? And you can say, well, I've actually made more money. Yeah. But at the same time, in the making more money, how have everybody else benefit? And people will say, well, I don't care about everybody else. But then when it comes to crime and stuff like that, you do care about everybody else. When it comes to abortion, you do care about everybody else. when it comes to somebody wanting to transition to the gender that they feel on the inside, you do care about everybody else. So which one is it? It's like, Roger Meadows says, not entire ACA, but the individual mandate by Heritage Foundation. Okay. Thank you so very much. Netanyahu supported Hamas. The demonstrations by same are therefore incoherent. The demonstrations by same are there. I don't know what you mean by that. Oh, and by the way, I also wanted to include this as well. There was a video that I did a couple of days ago. I would say a few days ago, where I actually talked about how Joe Biden is very similar to Trump on immigration. So if you guys would like to, you guys can actually go to that clip. But yeah, their actual policies on immigration are extremely similar. So when we talk about the similarities between Biden and Trump, there really is no difference. So, I mean, this is why it is important to show how similar they really are. They're really cut from the same cloth. So Biden is Trump's twin on immigration. That is the video that I put out there. So if you guys would like to, you guys can go and take a look at that. I also want to share this too, because everybody's talking about, well, democracy is on the ballot. No, it's not, because if it was on the ballot, then we shouldn't have to worry about what Bruce Spiva said for the DNC attorney. He said there's no such thing as a Democrat. The DNC just encourages people to vote for the Democratic Party. 2, no one has any right to an expectation of a fair election. If the DNC wishes to select a candidate in the primaries instead of a free election process, that's their right. What choices did we have in this Democratic primary? Oh, yeah, that's right. We didn't have one. 3, donating money to Bernie Sanders doesn't mean you thought the money was going to assist him to win the primary. You have no right to think the DNC is obligated to follow their own charter and internal policies about the elections. Number 4, discussion of and any disputes with the DNC do not belong in a transparent process and a court of law. The DNC is a private association which should never be asked to engage in the discovery process or have any real in order to reveal any of its internal workings or strategies should they decide to select a candidate rather than allow a fair election of a candidate. So therefore, it is not much different. And if you guys think the RNC is going to be different, I got a diamond encrusted bridge over a exploding volcano to sell you. And so I also want to share this just so that you guys know that how both parties are complicit in the doom that has been advertised in Project 2025. This is the headlines from different places. This is from Business Insider. Says the Biden administration says it may restart construction of the border wall to fill gaps left by Trump. I thought they were different. Vox says Biden plans to continue many of Trump's foreign policies, at least for now. Democracy Now! Says Biden illegally bombs Iranian-backed militias in Syria, jeopardizing nuclear talks with Tehran. This is from the Los Angeles Times. Biden promises change at the border. He kept Trump's Title 42 policy to close it off and cut off asylum. This is from CNN. Biden's administration will not shut down Dakota Access Pipeline during the environmental review. U.S. immigration, this is, I think it's from The Guardian, says Haiti deportations soar as Biden administration deploys Trump-era health order. Right. This is from Steve Elner. It says Biden's Venezuela policy, continuity with Trump. Biden was, still continuing Trump's Muslim ban. Oil drilling, sanctions, everything that pretty much really matters, Biden was doing the same thing as Trump. And the Democrats stood behind them. So when it comes to Project 2025, why are the Democrats so willing to keep us in danger? Now, just want to give a huge shout out to all the patrons on Patreon. Without you guys, we would not be able to do this work. Like Sabby said earlier, we try to do work on the ground when it comes to mutual aid and organizing. And because of you guys contributing to this channel, this is what we are able to do. So I just want to say thank you to all of you, because we are actually doing the damn thing on this channel, and we are getting together to do more on the ground. In fact, I'll be meeting with the chapter here in Orlando to talk more about what we're going to be doing this Saturday. So it's going to be a great time. And then once we get our date chosen, then we will advertise it. And then you guys are in Central Florida. You guys can come out and join us in order to help out our community here in Central Florida. So thank you so very much to all the patrons. So with that being said, it is time for me to go. I am starving. I'm going to get me something to eat. I don't know. I may have a salad or something. Who knows? But look, please let your family and friends know that, yes, Project 2025 is concerning, but this is nothing new. And that ultimately, we have to walk away from the duopoly, because the Democrats have placed us in danger and the Republicans are just hurting us. And if you don't want to go through electoral politics, you can at least go and do ballot initiatives, right? Vote for those. And if you don't want to do anything like that, then just organize on the ground to help your community, to subvert the crisis that is both parties. And care about each other, man. Get to know your neighbors. I think that's important. All right, so this weekend I'll be getting into the books that I'll be reading on my channel. I'll be reading Presidential by Margaret Kimberly. I'll be getting into that book. And then I'll be reading the books of Water and the Spirit, as well as the book The Will to Change by Bell Hooks. So we'll be getting into that. And be sure to see me this Sunday on the Jaybe show here on RBN, and Tuesday on my channel next week. Anywho, you guys have yourself a good one. Go to Sabby Sab's channel. She'll be live, I think, at 8. So be sure to go there, and I will be there too. So yes, and yes. Gray Walker says, love your neighbor. Yes. Won't you be my neighbor? All right. So everybody, take care. Have a good one. Mwah. Forehead kisses to every single one. Oh, wait. I forgot to check the Rumble. Let's see. We have Rumble rants. Do we have Rumble rants? I don't think so. Uh-oh. Yes, we do. Ah! Let me go to this. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. Ooh, good. Thank God I checked. All right, so we have a Rumble rant here. This is from Scorpion Sag. Says Republicans equals dogmatic Christianity plus capitalism. Democrats equal dogmatic scientific materialism plus capitalism. We need socialism with solidarity between materialists and spiritual people. Thank you so very much for that, Scorpion Sag, for the Rumble rant. Nice to see. Nice to see. All right, now I can get on. Whew, I saved my behind there. All right, everybody. Have a good one and have a good night. Thank you for watching.